Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we take some really critical research and boil it down into knowledge you can actually use. And today, we are tackling a huge puzzle, something you see in companies filled with incredibly smart, highly capable people. Here's the puzzle. Why do these amazing, well-resourced teams suddenly freeze or hesitate or just completely stall right when they need to make that big, bold move? It's this whole thing called organizational paralysis. Yeah, in our sources this week, they kind of cut right through the usual fluff. They look at this whole problem through the lens of company culture and neuroscience. And what they found is basically like an invisible neurological war happening inside the company, all triggered by the fear of messing up, the fear of failure.
That's spot on. And our mission for you today as a listener is pretty vital. We're skipping the easy fixes, like, oh, just get another flowchart or buy some new software. Instead, we're diving deep into the actual brain science behind why teams get paralyzed like this. We're going to uncover those hidden costs, the things leaders never seem to measure when they rely on blame. And, importantly, give you a framework to shift how your whole organization handles failure, moving from, pointing fingers to actually learning something.
Exactly. And there's this great quote from the research from Elbert Hubbard that just nails it. The greatest mistake you can make in life is to be continually fearing you will make one. The second we get more scared of failing than we are excited about succeeding, boom, we stall. So let's really get into the science behind that stall. Okay, so to understand why super capable humans freeze up, we actually need to rewind a bit. Back to the 1940s, believe it or not, with some really powerful research on behavior.
Yeah, Neely Miller's 1944 experiments. It's fascinating stuff.
And this involved rats, right?
Right. It did, yeah. Miller was studying motivation with rats. Simple setup. Train the rats to run towards a box with food. That's the reward. But then he added a twist. Sometimes, just as they got near the food, zap, an electric shock. That's the threat.
Ah, okay, so reward pulling them forward, threat pushing them back. Classic dilemma. What happened? How did the rats react to those mixed signals?
Well, they'd start running, all excited for the food. But as they got closer to that spot where the shock might happen, they'd slow down, hesitate, sometimes just stop completely, freeze right there. They were literally caught in this behavioral tug-of-war. That's what we call approach-avoidance conflict. The drive for the reward and the drive to avoid the pain basically cancel each other out.
Okay, hold on. Are you telling me that the same basic psychology driving a rat trying to avoid a shock is what's stopping, say, a senior exec or a brilliant tech team from launching a new product?
In essence, yes, absolutely. The research, especially stuff highlighted by people like Dr. Nicole Lipkin, draws a really clear line, that rat in the box. It's not so different from a human in a high-stakes project meeting. When we face that same conflict, big opportunity ahead, but failure could mean serious trouble. 3 specific parts of our brain light up simultaneously. It creates this neurological deadlock right inside our skulls.
Whoa. Okay, let's slow that down. We need to get clear on those 3 parts for everyone listening. What's actually fighting this invisible neurological war in our brains?
Right. So first, there's the amygdala. That's your brain's smoke detector, basically. It screams threat, danger, avoid the bad thing.
Okay, the alarm system. Got it. What else?
Second, you've got the ventral striatum. This is more about motivation, reward. It's pulling you forward, saying, go for it. Think of the success, the bonus, the promotion.
The cheerleader, wanting the prize.
And the third. And third is the prefrontal cortex, your rational brain. It's trying to be the referee, weighing the pros and cons. Is this potential reward really worth the potential fallout?
That makes so much sense. Amygdala screaming stop, striatum yelling go, prefrontal cortex trying to mediate. Wow. And this is where the company culture becomes like gasoline on the fire, right?
Yeah.
If your workplace defaults to blame, if failing means getting yelled at, demoted, maybe even fired, you're basically cranking up the power on that potential electric shock.
Precisely. You make the avoidance signal way stronger than the approach signal. Suddenly, every big idea isn't just a chance to win. It's a huge risk, a potential career disaster. And the result? It looks like careful planning, deep analysis maybe, but really it's often just organizational paralysis disguised as careful consideration. The real driver underneath is fear.
And taking a step back, the sources we looked at argue this paralysis brings a whole bunch of invisible taxes, these hidden costs that pile up every single day when blame is the go-to reaction. Costs that, finance departments and project managers almost never track.
That's such a crucial point. Businesses are great at tracking the obvious costs, materials, salaries, office space. But how do you measure the cost of an idea someone was too scared to share? Or a critical decision delayed for months, or your best people quietly heading for the exit? These hidden costs build up, often silently, until things reach a crisis point.
Let's break down those 4 specific hidden costs the research identifies. Because these are, well, they're painful truths for a lot of companies. First up is innovation avoidance.
Right. Innovation avoidance is when teams basically stick to safe bets. Small tweaks, incremental improvements. Why? Because the perceived risk of being wrong about something truly game-changing is just too high compared to the reward of being right. If tweaking something by 5% keeps your job safe, why gamble your career on a potentially massive 500% leap? That approach avoidance conflict pushes you towards the small, safe step every time.
Yeah, which flows straight into the second cost, decision paralysis. Leaders put off making the big calls, not because they need more data, usually, but because they're terrified of being the one holding the bag if things go south later. They just stay stuck in analysis mode forever because, like one author said, you can always backtrack on a delayed decision, but you can't undo being blamed for a bad one.
And the third cost. This one might be the most damaging long-term. Talent flight. The research is really clear here. Your best people, the innovators, the problem solvers, the ones who can get jobs elsewhere, they leave first. They actively seek out places where taking smart risks is encouraged, not punished. Where their drive to approach the challenge isn't constantly choked by fear. So you lose the very people you need most for growth.
Ouch. And all this culminates in the final cost. Competitive disadvantage. Simple as that. While your teams are locked in this neurological stalemate, guess what? Your competitors, maybe the ones with slightly healthier cultures, they're moving forward. The historical examples are just brutal reminders. Think about Kodak. They literally invented the core tech for the digital camera, but they were so afraid of disrupting their own film business.
That internal fear, that avoidance, won out. They hesitated. And that hesitation opened the door wide for companies like Sony to swoop in, market the tech, and basically own the future Kodak invented.
It's the same story with Blockbuster, isn't it? They had a chance to partner with Netflix way back when.
Exactly. But Blockbuster's leadership, they were so fixated on protecting their existing store rental model, which felt safe and predictable. Embracing this weird streaming thing felt way too risky. Their approach avoidance conflict just shut down the approach completely. And we all know how that story ended. Massive competitive failure.
It's wild how often this whole destructive cycle starts with something that sounds perfectly sensible. You know, leaders saying things like, we really need more accountability around here, or look, someone has to be responsible for this mess. Yeah. On the surface, those statements seem necessary, right, for running a tight ship, but they can so easily spiral into just blame.
This is where we absolutely have to draw a line in the sand. Accountability and blame. They are not the same thing. They might sound similar, but culturally, functionally, they're opposites. It all comes down to the question they ask.
Okay, lay it out for us. What's the core difference?
Blame asks, whose fault is this? It looks backward to find a person to punish. Simple as that. Accountability, on the other hand, asks, how can we improve our system based on this outcome? It looks forward, focused on learning and future growth.
Blame points fingers backward. Accountability seeks solutions forward. Got it. And that difference, even if it seems subtle in the words, has massive neurological consequences, going back to what we discussed earlier. When leaders jump straight to blame,
The amygdala, that threat detector, goes into overdrive. It doesn't just register, uh-oh, project delay. It interprets workplace punishment, being shamed, demoted, whatever, as a genuine threat to survival, to your safety, your security, your standing in the tribe.
it feels like a real danger, not just a work problem.
Precisely. And the moment that threat response kicks in, it hijacks the prefrontal cortex, your rational thinking center. People stop thinking about how can I contribute best and start obsessing over how do I avoid getting punished. They shift from optimizing for the company's success to optimizing for their own self-preservation, which, you know, is understandable but disastrous for the organization.
So if this approach avoidance conflict, fueled by fear and blame, is the core problem,
Yeah.
what's the fix? The research talks about a fundamental mindset shift, right? Contrasting fear-based leaders with love-based leaders.
Yeah, love-based, meaning leaders who prioritize psychological safety, curiosity, and learning. That mindset shift is the absolute key. It's what creates the psychological safety needed to counteract that approach avoidance paralysis. And honestly, the quickest way to tell which kind of leader you're dealing with, or maybe which kind you are, is just to listen. Listen to the questions they ask right after something goes wrong.
Okay, let's compare them directly.
Yeah.
The fear-based leader, the one pouring fuel on that neurological fire, asks things like,
Who screwed this up? How do we make sure this doesn't happen again, which often translates to who needs more scrutiny, and the big one, who's going to be held responsible for this? Notice the focus is all on the person.
Right. Now contrast that with the love-based leader, the one trying to build safety and resolve the conflict. What do their questions sound like?
Totally different vibe. They ask, okay, what can we learn from this outcome? How could we improve our systems or processes so this kind of error is less likely? And crucially, how can I support the team in moving forward from here?
Ah, see the shift. From blaming the person to examining the process. That's huge.
It is huge because that shift is what tells the amygdala, okay, stand down, the immediate threat is lower. It reduces the intensity of that metaphorical shock. It allows the approach motivation, the ventral striatum wanting the reward, to actually win the tug of war more often.
And when that safety isn't there, the research talks about this ripple effect of blame, how it spreads through the whole organization.
Absolutely. It starts at the individual level. Dr. Lipkin points out people develop this kind of background hum of anxiety, constant hesitation. Your sharpest employees start second-guessing things they used to just do.
Then it hits the team level.
Yeah, collaboration just tanks. Why would you admit you're unsure about something or flag a potential problem early if that just paints a target on your back? It becomes dangerous. So teams stop genuinely exploring ideas together. Instead, they only bring forward these perfectly polished, safe solutions they've already stress tested for blame proofing, which kills real innovation, of course.
And then culturally.
Culturally, that whole approach-avoidance conflict gets baked into the company's DNA. It becomes the water everyone swims in. New hires, they learn the unspoken rules fast. Don't stick your neck out. Hide your mistakes. Never, ever show uncertainty. That underlying message becomes, just play it safe, stay small.
So let's bring this home for everyone listening. What's the real bottom line cost of constantly playing it safe because of this fear? It sounds devastating.
It is. You're sacrificing future growth because big breakthroughs require trying things that might fail. You're killing employee engagement because who wants to work in constant fear? And ultimately, you're bleeding competitive advantage. You're basically choosing to stand still while the world rushes past.
Wow. Okay, so the solution isn't like getting rid of accountability altogether, is it? That's often the fear.
No, not at all. That's a common misunderstanding. The solution isn't no accountability. It's fundamentally transforming the response to mistakes and failures. When leaders consistently, visibly choose curiosity over condemnation, when they treat failure not as a final judgment on someone, but as valuable data for the team to learn from, that's what resolves the approach avoidance conflict. It flips the switch.
Okay, so we have a challenge for you, our listener, this week. Something really concrete to put this into practice. Think about your team, or maybe even just one project. Find one area where things seem stuck, where there's hesitation, delay maybe on something important, and instead of immediately asking, why aren't we moving faster, or what's the holdup, pause. Ask yourself a different question. What might they be afraid of? What potential shock are they anticipating if they actually move towards that goal?
Yeah, really reflect on that because chances are your team isn't stuck because they don't want the reward, the success. They might be stuck because their brains, on a very deep level, are trying to protect them from a threat that a culture of blame has made feel incredibly real. Remember, every single time something goes wrong, your response is a choice. Are you going to inject more fear, triggering that paralyzing conflict? Or are you going to create safety, resolving it? Your teams, maybe even your whole organization's next big breakthrough might be trapped right behind that conflict, waiting for you to make a different choice. So what's your choice going to be?